Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Jennifer Roman-Matito. She is the co-founder of Mother's Milk, and we are here to discuss conscious drinking. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's my pleasure. And this is such an exciting topic. It was when you mentioned it to me before, I didn't really think about it. Even if I'm mindful or conscious about what I'm doing when I drink, I didn't think about the entirety of the context, the idea of being actively consciously drinking. So with that said, for those not familiar with this term, like it was new to me, would you just give us your definition of what conscious drinking is?
Yes. So you may hear it as conscious drinking or mindful drinking. I actually like to call it wellness conscious drinking. But ultimately, it is truly just being more aware of what you're drinking, putting actual thought into whatever it is that you're choosing to indulge in, specifically in the category of alcohol.
I mean, it sounds like it's something we would do naturally, right? Like think about what you're drinking, what you're eating. We look at ingredients when we buy products. But we don't necessarily think about it when we order that cocktail. But we do think about it when we order Coke. You make a choice, I don't really want all the sugar. So the question is, why didn't that apply previously to cocktails?
So I think that when you go to enjoy a cocktail, you've got a mission a lot of the time, right? And that's to have a nice buzz. That is to, loosen up a little bit. So I think that specifically just the world is a little bit more in a conscious place. Mm-hmm. We are way more aware of a lot of the preventative care that goes into taking care of our bodies, what we're putting into our bodies. I just think about, my childhood and the fruit roll-ups and the cereal.
Oh my God, I forgot about those.
And the yummy treats. I hate to say yummy, but they were yummy.
What about SpaghettiOs? Did you ever eat SpaghettiOs?
Of course. Absolutely. As an afternoon snack. My father actually used to love SpaghettiOs too. So we always had them in the household. And now just generally, I think as a society in America, we are way more aware of what we're putting inside of our bodies, which I definitely think has had a major impact and translated over into the space that is alcohol, truly.
Well, what's interesting to me is, this mindful movement, mindful meditation, just being more mindful. I think that maybe on the West Coast, maybe it was a little bit more forward. They were more forward thinking and accepting and open to this. And I think it's newer in some other places, depending on the culture, right? But I'm wondering, when did the conscious drinking start? It feels to me like a time around COVID, because people are at home having cocktails. They're having cocktails on Zoom. They're doing all these things at the edges of their driveway if they live in the country or something. So I don't know, when was the first time you guys started talking about this area, this industry, conscious drinking?
So
idea. That's a better word.
There we go. Idea. It is absolutely an idea. I call it a category. But absolutely. So I couldn't agree with you more. It started for me personally during the era of COVID, really 2020, right? But I also think that it's twofold. One, the younger generation, right? They're just, I hate to put it this way, so much smarter. And, they're so much more well-educated. And I think that the younger generation is truly setting the tone here. That's my personal opinion in so many different facets. But I think that there's been a surge in the concept that is wellness conscious drinking post-COVID. That's when it really hit for me. So I think I've expressed this to you, but I used to be a spicy margarita girl. Yeah. Love a spicy margarita, throw the jalapenos, the salt on the rim. And then as I just started to get older, I started to have like a physical response every single time I had a spicy margarita. And I was listening to my body. It was saying, no, thank you. Listen to me, please. And then around COVID, I was like a lot of people, it was sometimes 3 o'clock in the afternoon, cracking open a seltzer. And I realized that even after I had 1 or 2 seltzers, I was not feeling great for another 24 hours sometime. And selfishly, when we launched our brand Mother's Milk, which is a clean ingredient coconut water cocktail that is an option for the wellness conscious drinker, we really thought that we made up this term. We were like, it's conscious drinking. And then you do a quick Google and you realize that 1 in 3 alcoholic drinkers, so somebody that indulges in having a drink every so often, 1 in 3 identifies actually as a conscious drinker. So this is actually an entire category that
So
has
you're saying like you, me, and Bonnie are all having a cocktail, and at least one of us know about this idea, this concept, this category.
At least one of the 3 of us is looking at the cocktail that we are going to order and specifically making a choice to choose the better for you option.
And I can't agree with you more. I mean, even recently when I went out to order a mocktail, okay?
Yeah.
So that's consciously drinking, right?
Absolutely.
And it's because I'm scared I'm going to get a migraine. I think I'm going to wake up more tired. And I know that it doesn't really work for me. So I order a mocktail. But even within a mocktail, there's sugar and other things. So when I'm ordering my cocktail, I'm like, no added sugar, please.
Yes, 100%. I also always make the joke that, when my friends, I'm in that phase where like everybody's gotten married in the last 5 or 6 years or so in my life. And to get wedding ready, I tell all the brides, no more wine. If you drink beer, get off the beer. And if you're going to drink something, it should just be a vodka water. It's the simplest option that we can offer you, or the world can offer you, right? That doesn't have all the added yuck when you're trying to be as beautiful as possible to fit into that dress. And so that was a lot of the thought process behind Mother's Milk is we were cutting out all of the junk. And then we realized how coconut water is actually energizing, pumps you with electrolytes, hydration, antioxidants, vitamins. And so instead of chugging the coconut water with our hangovers the next day, let's mix it together. And it's made a world of difference in my life. I feel less guilt or worry when I have 1 or 2 or 3 Mother's Milks. And I tend to wake up the next day feeling absolutely amazing. Now, you can't necessarily promise that for every single person, but right. I can tell you our market research and our community has actually proven that, we're really onto something here.
So I'm curious. I know that you guys have been doing this in the last, few years. You've done your research. When you first put conscious drinking into Google, what was the most surprising thing that you saw or you learned?
That there were statistics about it. Immediately. Like I mentioned before, I thought that we came up with this genius branding concept, and really it just flowed because it already existed. And there were actual real life data being put behind, 1, the beverage industry, and 2, specifically around, this newer, younger generation that's coming up as more wellness conscious drinkers. And the big stat that actually stood out to me is that the younger generation of 21, 22, up to 25-year-olds are actually drinking less. And I personally, I'm from the opinion that because there's just not the options out there. And so that was a lot of, the thought process behind our business.
I wonder what role CBD plays in this and THC, because if the younger generation isn't drinking, that was not an option when we were younger, right?
Totally.
And so I'm just curious what role that plays. I don't know if you have an idea of what role that plays, but that's okay.
I don't necessarily have any real statistics. I have a few friends now that have launched their own CBD lines. Actually, I have a neighbor that launched her own non-alcoholic sparkling wine that is CBD infused, right? And so it's a nice little cocktail mix, especially if you're trying, right before bed. And I have, another friend that actually launched their own cannabis store in New York City. So I will tell you that there's definitely a surge in the market. I'm sure you've experienced it, that, very much similar to on the line of conscious drinking. People are just becoming more comfortable in exercising their rights to enjoy cannabis and CBD.
So is this a conversation that you're having with people around drinking, or do you feel like it's new to people if you bring it up? Do you feel like there's a familiarity with it?
So I think that where I have two fronts of education is one, this category that's called RTDs in the alcohol space is relatively new, right? Like it really blew up over COVID. So it's only a couple
Okay,
years.
just for those listening that are not familiar with what RTD is, could you just explain that, please?
Completely. It's a ready to drink. That's it. And so this particular category of cocktail RTD, or ready to drink, thank you, is new, right? So there's some education around just that. People ask me often, but how do I serve this? And we got a whole sheet that breaks down how you can serve it, whether you're at a bar, at a restaurant, at a backyard barbecue. But there's the also front of the education that comes behind my product, which is that it is a better for you option, right? So I definitely think that there are some big messages that have to be understood. And in the most general sense, I think that we really have aligned with the female demographic because they get it. It requires less education. They understand what comes with coconut water. And so a lot of it is really self-explanatory. But yes, to answer your question, 100%. There is some education that comes around a product like ours, and just this new conversation around conscious drinking.
Right. So I want to explore this conversation around conscious drinking and how it affects people. So, because, nobody wants to feel judged for choosing a bottle of wine or any other cocktail. So what role do you think that plays in the conversation for groups of people that are drinking? Is there shame around it for other people? Are they considered not consciously drinking?
So one of the things that you will actually get a quick Google from is the fact that what is hand in hand with conscious drinking is no judgment. It is a no judgment zone. You're allowed to drink whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally up to you how much you want to suffer the next day. Right? I don't know how busy your next day is. Maybe you got nothing to do and you decide, to take it one too far. But in the most general sense, the entire idea of being a mindful, conscious drinker really lays on the foundation that it's a no judgment zone whatsoever.
And it's interesting because you can still have the alcohol, being conscious, and you can still make the choice to drink the red wine or the vodka without the coconut water. It's still consciously drinking.
Correct.
It's just making a different choice. It's not making necessarily the better for you choice. It's making the choice that you wish to follow. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's just really great to be able to have this category of options. So for those people that want to participate and party and have a good time, but maybe suffer from migraines or have work or don't like to feel that way, there's another option. So if you go out with your friends and, I wonder, I'm not New York anymore, but is there a place that just offers better for you drinks? And there is. Okay, tell me about it.
Well, here's what I would say. I actually used to work for the hotel group, Arlo Hotels. A friend of mine, Gary Wallach, is one of the owners and the head of the hospitality group. And the restaurant is called Linden's within Arlo, Soho. And they've been intentional on creating not just a food menu, but a cocktail menu that complements better for you food options and matches that on the cocktail side. I also think that there have been other initiatives in other places where there's definitely more of a conscious attempt to not just necessarily make a great cocktail with 17 different ingredients, but to actually create simple ingredient cocktails that taste phenomenal, have a lower sugar, lower calorie, but still pack all of the taste and the alcohol, of course.
Right. I mean, I remember going to lots of restaurants where they have mocktails and,
Yes.
the mixologists, and it's really about this beautiful drink with the flowers and the way that they combine the fruits, the vegetables, and it's very artisanal. And so I'm wondering, what role is mindful drinking playing now with the mixologists? Are they now learning to create a variety of other cocktails that they haven't had before?
That's 100% correct. They are being forced into, you might say, uncomfortable spaces. And, I'll give a perfect example of one of my friends, Sweeney, and a colleague of mine. He's been on the Today Show. He's a well-established, I want to call him a mixologist, bartender in New York City. He's curated bar programs for multiple locations. And he has to create an entire list, not one, not two, three mocktails, but an entire list now, utilizing all of these new non-alcoholic brands. And so I would say that it's changed up the game a bit, right? And you can't just have alcohol options. Everyone these days also features spirit-free options. Very similar to how more and more locales are offering RTDs or ready to drink options as well. Very similar. But I do think that there's been a major shift in the industry, in the world of mixology, and they do absolutely have to focus on some other options. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Skinny Girl Margarita, which was, brand founded by Bethany Frankel, and she's been a major inspo for us. And, she's like the queen bee of the space that I'm in right now. And really, truly, she's one of the early on, pioneers into creating something that just makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very smart. I don't know, and maybe it's because I'm not in the industry, but it doesn't seem like people are talking about, are you consciously drinking, or, how do you make your choices? It's more just people do their own thing, and it's part of how they make that choice. Are you seeing much of a conversation with your friends and colleagues and people in the industry actually discussing conscious drinking?
I would not say that they're utilizing the terminology, right? Because it's a little bit newer in the space. And so people aren't like, I'm a conscious drinker. I think it's one of those conversations that I have often when I go out to dinner with my friends, right? Even down to the no dessert today, but it starts with the cocktail. It starts at the beginning of the meal. And we look at the ingredients of those cocktails, and sometimes you don't even know what all those ingredients are, which also scares you off. You're like, sounds cool, but what is actually in it, right? And I'm sure that they're absolutely delicious, but I tend to always go for the simpler ingredient option. And when there's something that doesn't necessarily exist there, that's when I go for the vodka water, especially when mother's milk is not served on the menu.
Right.
But I do think that people are participating in these conversations unconsciously.
Yeah, I think so that's where I was going with it. I think it's very unconscious right now. And people are having the conversations in their head and with themselves and maybe with their immediate family and friends, but I think it's less so. So I wonder, how do we inspire this conversation to be a bit bigger, a bit part of the meal, the conversation you're having with friends, as a choice to make, as a choice to where you're going to go out, what the options are, and even focusing on going somewhere that maybe offers better for you cocktails.
That's what I was going to say. It's about the offering, right? And it is truly starting the conversation around the offering options. And I think that that's one of the big ways to kind of just get the conversation going, is by actually having more options available for the people who are consciously or unconsciously making these better for you choices. And you know what? I think that there's a lot more to come there. And I think that this is going to be more of a major topic at a lot of the bigger conferences. I think it'll be more of a bigger topic at a lot of the bigger expos. I know you were just at an expo. And I think that as time goes on, it's just going to be a little bit, it's kind of hitting the pavement. It's a little bit more education and awareness.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I'm excited to have those conversations and see where people's heads are at. And I'm wondering if there was one thing that you could let people know about conscious drinking to inspire conversation or choice, what would that be?
I would probably say just look at what you're putting inside of your body when you're enjoying that cocktail. Pay attention. Not even so much maybe inspiring the conversation, because I think it starts with every single individual, but maybe just paying a little bit closer attention. And then you can kind of track how you feel the next day, even later on that evening. And I think that when, one person just kind of makes a decision to be more mindful, more
Mhm.
conscious, it starts to have a little bit more of a ripple effect. And, if it starts at home with one person as an individual, they bring it to the dinner, they bring it to the barbecue. To answer your question, I think it really just starts with the individual. And I think individually, we just need to pay better attention, because ultimately, it's a lot of the junk that doesn't make you feel great later.
Right. I mean, what's interesting to me and what comes to my mind is, do you remember when Meetup started?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I could totally see this being like a meetup, right? You
Oh,
meet
I
up, you
love that
talk about
idea.
conscious drinking. You create a community where people are open to question and answer and be curious about this. Because
You
I haven't seen much community around it. Have you?
So you just sparked something in my brain. We have launched what we call Mother Nature's Fan Club, right? Because Mother's Milk is made primarily with Mother Nature's ingredients. And so when we launched Mother Nature's Fan Club, which is our community internally with Mother's Milk, but also our monthly newsletter, our next newsletter is going to be about mindful conscious drinking.
Okay.
That's where we need to push the envelope a little bit and force this concept and idea into people's faces, so that way they can actually connect it back to what they're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah,
So
I
you look at
totally agree.
sparking ideas, absolutely, and
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
that more community around it, 100%.
well, when you were talking about the hotel in Soho, right? And you're talking about them pairing more conscious drinks with better for you food choices. To me, it sounds like a natural place to host a dinner where people have conversation around this, and it's conscious choices about what you're eating and what you're drinking, and pairing together and bringing people together to talk about the choices that we have, um, and the options that are out there. So maybe
I
there's
see
a
a
collaboration.
collaboration. I see a
I see
collaboration
collaboration.
on the horizon.
I think it's like we call the Arlo, we talk to your friend, you and I collaborate, we bring in some other brands that talk about this, and ding, 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 we start the conscious drinking community supper club.
I look, did we just create something? Did you just create something right now? I've already got 2 brands in mind that I know 100% would be interested in activating with us for that dinner.
I think
So,
we should do that.
oh my,
And for
well,
those
now
listening,
we
if you're
have to.
interested in joining this, regardless of what state you're in or country you're in, let us know, because maybe we'll take this infant of an idea and we'll start it in one place and then explore what other cities, states, and countries we can then bring it to.
Let's do it. I'm
The conscious
100% on board.
I love that. Oh my God, look at this. This was very fruitful. But, I hope that others will join the conversation too. So as we're talking about this, what are some of your favorite brands that talk to this value system, conscious drinking?
So these are actually without necessarily even having the conversation with them yet, but I think that they would be very interested in supporting this dinner. I will think of 2 brands are coming to mind immediately. One being probably an unexpected choice, but Peroni, the beer. They launched Peroni OO, which is
Oh,
a non-alcoholic option. And if you've ever tasted it, they do a phenomenal job at tricking you, right? They do. They really do. And so I think even these huge, massive brands are recognizing this category in this space, and that they have to get involved. they're missing an entire segment of the population if they don't, right?
Yeah.
I also think another brand, and these are brands that I work with, which are not necessarily competitive, right? So
Right.
there's great collaborative efforts, but also Ritual, which is a
Yeah.
zero proof alcohol option, right?
Yep.
So they have a variety of different options that they can offer you that are actually non-alc, but truly, again, trick you. And they flow phenomenally into a cocktail and really supplement whether it's tequila or vodka or the aperitif. And so those are two brands that I've worked with closely that I think also just are very aware of this space. But when it comes to the actual alcohol space, and creating some better for you options, there's a major lacking there because our whole shtick that we joke about all the time is who said healthy people don't like to turn up sometimes? And so if there are more brands out there that align with Mother's Milk and our ideologies and are really utilizing Mother Nature's ingredients, but obviously also with that little bit of an alcohol kick, find us, please. We'd love to, join forces and collaborate on this dinner or multiple dinners or some other activations.
We're going to kick one off in New York and one off in San Francisco.
I love that. Amazing.
You'll kick off the one in New York. I'll kick off the one in San Francisco. But of course, we'll invite our friends and family that I have from New York.
Always.
And maybe we'll even do it we'll do them in tandem or something. We'll figure that out.
I love this idea.
I'm excited about that. And I think that together we can really make something happen. So that's what happens here when we connect with all these founders, researchers, and explore these topics, because we bring different people in. So as we continue this, and we're doing a month on conscious drinking, we want to continue this conversation with you, Jen, and see who else we could bring in to talk about this and the importance of it so that people feel that they've got the strength inside to make those choices and feel good about them.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So let us know who else is out there.
Awesome. Jen, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about conscious drinking. This was so great. So many fun things came out of it. And for those that are just learning about conscious drinking, send us an email. Let us know what you're curious about, what else you want to hear, who else you'd like to hear from, and what else we can explore.
Yes, absolutely.
And for those interested in Mother's Milk, because
please,
Jen has Mother's Milk. Jen, give us a quick 30-second pitch on what is Mother's Milk and where can people find it.
First of all, follow us at Drink Mother's Milk on Instagram. It's really where our Bible is, and you can learn everything about us. Help us get organic followers. We're not paying for them, number one. Number two, Mother's Milk is a coconut water cocktail RTD, so ready to drink in a can, a true cocktail in a can with a real spirit, 9% ABV vodka. We will eventually be moving on to other potential spirited cans.
Did I hear mezcal?
Potentially. Let's see how that goes. We're looking for some partnerships to go into our next SKUs. And we really are a clean ingredient, no artificial flavoring, all natural flavoring, no added sugar, no added preservatives, vegan, gluten-free option for the wellness conscious drink.
And so for those that are interested in kicking off their mindful journey, their conscious drinking journey, explore Mother's Milk and all these others that we've talked about. And if there's some that you think we should learn more about, let us know. You can find us on Instagram and all of our social channels. So again, Jen, thanks so much for joining me, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Amazing. Have a great day, everyone.